Okay, so I've got my drums down, I've got a groove going that I'm really happy with, it's nice and catchy, and this is really the fundamental feature of this track for me, and it's going to be the highlight that's going to carry this track from start to finish, and that you're going to hear that groove all the way through. It's now time to start adding in some melodic elements, and I want these sounds just to fit in and slot nicely with that groove that I've already got going. So first things first, I'm going to create a new pattern, and I'm going to call this Synth Chords. And I going into this, I already knew what sound I wanted here. I wanted something that was going to have a lot of grit to it, probably quite a detuned sound, not something that's going to stick out, but something that's just going to fit in nicely with the general tone and the general sound of this track. Use a lot of the Native Instruments plugins. And soft synths, they're all great. So with this one, it was a plugin called Contour and a preset I found that was called Big Room. That's the one. Okay, so you could spend an awful lot of time in your projects messing about with sound design, which I would absolutely recommend. But sometimes if you know what you're looking for, just dive into the presets, find something if you find a sound that you're looking for. So that's pretty much exactly what I had in my mind. The only thing that I'm going to do here is just bring this reverb size right down. Apart from that, pretty happy with that. I'm going to do a bit of processing on my own side, but generally, as of now, I'm happy with that sound. Okay, I've determined just by listening to those toms and some of the other percussion sounds, I'm best writing in E minor here. And there are no rules here, but I think it's a safe measure to try and tune at least a little bit your percussion sounds, especially those deep sounds like those toms, with the more melodic and chromatic synth sounds, just so that it's not going to clash too much. Okay, so I'm just going to draw this in because I already know what I'm going for here. But it's always a good idea just to have a mess around in the keyboard, some different ideas, and figure out what you're looking for first. So what I'll do is I'll paste that in so that I can listen and have a mess around as I'm doing it. Rename this synth chord. Send that to my mixer. And now I'm just going to solo this and listen to it and just build on the basis there that I already have. So I'm going to start with just a basic E minor triad. As well. Okay, sounding great to me. Now just to work on the sound itself. So I'm going to sidechain that first of all, just so it ducks nicely every time the kick hits, and it slots into the beat nicely. can already hear the difference that makes. Okay, I'm going to pull out Sound Toys Decapitator once again. Again, just to make this, I mean, it's already a pretty raw, gritty sound, but I'm wanting even more out of that. Bring my drive up a little bit. And bring the tone up just so it distorts a little bit more on that top end. Perfect. And you've seen it already again. I'm going to add on micro shift to this as well, just so I get an even wider sounds, because I'm going to have a bass coming in that's going to hit right down the middle in mono, and a lot of those lower, you know, toms and kicking things that's hitting down the center of this mix. So I wanted these chords to just be sitting nice and wide, just create a lot more space. And again, it's just a case of, as I've been doing before, having a mess around with these parameters until I arrive at a sound that I'm happy with. Leave that there actually, just so I'm quite happy having that quite loose sounding and a little bit messy almost. Get rid of some frequencies here that I don't need. As you can see, it covers quite a wide spectrum of the frequency range there. And again, highlights frequency here that I want to bring out a little bit more. So you can hear the difference there. If I was to take all of those effects off, I just really brightened that up and saturated the top end a bit just to make it a little grittier. And just to sit a little bit higher in the mix. Okay, what I'm going to do here also is add 2 fruity filters. Now this isn't going to make an awful lot of sense at the moment, but when the time comes to start working on the build-ups, the arrangement and some automation, this is when this is going to come into place. So I want a low pass filter here, so this isn't going to affect it until I start playing with that cut-off frequency toggle. And you can already hear how that might be useful when it comes to bringing this in and out and working on build-ups. So I'm just going to add another one of these, except this time bring down the low pass, don't need any resonance, and that's my high pass. Similarly, I'm going to add a reverb. Now this isn't necessarily to add reverb to the sound as it always appears. Again, this is going to be a build-up technique that I use a lot. First I'm just going to get the sound that I want. Again, if I bring that all the way down, it's just a completely dry sound, but you might already be able to hear how that might be useful at some parts in the track when it comes to creating that anticipation and build up. Happy with that. Now it's just a case of mixing that in with my drums. Bring that right down. Like I said, I don't need this sound to stand out necessarily, it's just to slot in with that groove. Next thing I want to do is add my first bass, and that's going to be a sub. I'm going to use massive for this. And a nice starting point for us creating a sub is just a sine wave there and turn the wave position all the way to the left. I've already got a sound that I've created here, and it was just using a sub preset and massive and then messing around with some of the parameters. I just like the sound of that. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to highlight all the bass notes in this chord pattern, copy that, and that's just a Command and C on the Mac. Go back onto my sub bass, open a piano roll and slot that in, paste that, and again that's just Command and V. Okay, that's pretty much all I need. All I needed this to do was follow the bass notes that I already had there in the chords. I'm just going to add an additional one down here, elongate that slightly. Rename this sub bass, throw that into my mixer. I'm going to draw that in, see how that sounds. And you see how much weight that carries in the low end there, it's sounding great. Solo it. Once again, add sidechain. And just do a little bit of EQing on this. Not an awful lot. Low cut. Much steeper curve. Bring that down to about 25. As anything below that, it's just never going to be necessary. Our ears certainly don't pick it up. And to my knowledge, there aren't many systems, if any, that are going to pick anything below that up either. So it's just it's unnecessary mess in the mix. Just going to lower the bandwidth slightly. The only other thing at this point I'm going to do is I've got quite a punchy kick that it's not really weighty. So in order to capture this kind of key frequency range, you know, between 35 to 50 hertz in the low end of this mix, I just want to highlight that in this sub bass. Much narrower bandwidth. And just raise that couple of dB. And it's really just for that one note at the start. You can hear it coming through a lot clearer there. So it's nice and clean there with the kick and those low sounds. Mix that in. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now what I'm going to do is add another bass 2 I'm going to call that. And this is really just for, so I've got a nice clean strong sounding sub bass there that's going to really punch through. You know, if you've got good bass response and good low end frequency headphones, monitors, or certainly in a club. But it's also worth considering where else this might be listened to, whether, I think I mentioned, whether it's on a phone or a pair of earphones or in your car or whatever. So it's important to cover all those frequency ranges with the sound, and I'm going to do this by adding in another bass and cover a more mid to low frequency range here. It's a preset I'm already happy with that I've found, bass 2, and as you can hear there, it's a lot more prominent in the mid range. All I need to do is copy this, go back onto my bass 2 pattern, and that's essentially just it's essentially just a saw wave that's a lot wider and covers that mid to low frequency range. Rename that bass 2, throw it into my mixer, and what I want to do is solo this and my sub bass just so I can hear those two together. Okay, sidechain this. What I will do is take some of the low end off of that, frequencies that are already covered by that sub. Don't need to touch that actually, it's really only kind of 50 above that I want to hear this. Now it's just a case of mixing that with my sub. It's obviously far too overpowering. I want this to be pretty subtle. And you can hear the difference that makes just adding in that other bass. You're just covering more ground really there with the bass. One more sound I'm going to add in here, and this is thinking ahead to when I'm going to be thinking about my arrangement. And again, this isn't something that you're necessarily going to hear throughout. It's more just when it comes to the second breakdown and the second build up, I always like to add you know, whether I'm bringing in new sounds or just something that's going to be a little bit different from the first breakdown and the first build up. And in this instance, I'm going to add a bass sound that's going to follow a progressive bass pattern that is the only time you hear it in that second breakdown, just to really make that stand out and be a bit more unique and really capture the attention a lot more. So I've just copied this over because it's going to be important that it works underneath this sound still. So again, I've already got a sound here that I know I'm happy with. I'm going to load in a preset. It's called, I think I called it Synth Chords, even though it's... So as you can hear, it's kind of organ sounding. But I'm going to use that as a bass rather than an organ. And I'm just going to draw in my pattern. going to bring that up the octave. Just a bit too low there. Okay, I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do is paste that in to my arrangement and have a listen to that. First of all, I'll send that. Oh, I've already done that in my mixer. Bring the gain down. So it's just nice and subtle under that. So you can already hear, you know, the kind of effect I'm going for. It's quite ominous. And it's just going to add a lot of anticipation and tension in that second breakdown, working up to the second drop. So I'm just going to sidechain this, just in the chance that it might appear at the same time as my kick. And again, I'm going to add a low pass filter that we're not going to use at the moment, but it's going to come in handy later when it comes to bringing this in. You can hear. Alright, so let's just have another little listen to. And there we have it. This is pretty much all of the elements that I'm going to use that are going to create this track for me. I'm pretty happy with all of that. Now time to start looking at some other elements that are going to really bring this out and really grab the audience's attention. And a good way of doing that is throwing in some vocals, and that's what I'm moving on to next.
Thanks everybody for watching, commenting and indeed liking. We really do appreciate all the support we get here on our Sonic Academy YouTube channel. So if you found this video super useful, please, we'd love you to hit the subscribe button. We update the YouTube channel every week with new content. And if you want to watch some more relevant content, just click on the videos beside me.